She took off her wedding ring before she said a word. I heard the soft clink as it landed on the marble counter, subtle, intentional, like she wanted me to hear it. Like she needed me to know that whatever came next, it wasn't going to be temporary. I didn't turn around right away. I just stared into the sink, watching the pasta water swirl down the drain. The timer on the oven beeped twice, and I ignored it. I knew the lasagna would burn. I didn't care. Behind me, she cleared her throat. "Colby," she said, my name landing like a verdict. "I think I need a break." Just like that. No preamble. No fight. No tears. Just a ring on the counter and a sentence with no weight in her voice. I turned around slowly, half hoping this was a joke. But Macy's face was blank. Not angry. Not sad. Just blank. Like she'd rehearsed this line in her head so many times, the emotion had dried out of it. "A break?" I asked, already feeling like a child repeating the word why. She nodded and crossed her arms. "It's not working." "What's not working?" I asked. Her answer came too fast. "This. Us. The energy's just off. I feel like I'm stuck, Colby. Like I'm not even me anymore." Stuck. That word hit me harder than it should have. Like I was a heavy piece of furniture she was tired of walking around. I wanted to say 100 things, to argue, to beg, to remind her of everything we built. But the only words that came out were, "Can we talk about this after dinner?" She looked at the oven timer, blinking red, then back at me. "There's no point." Then she turned and walked upstairs. Just like that. No yelling. No door slam. No explanation. I stood there alone in the kitchen, surrounded by the smell of burnt mozzarella and garlic bread I'd made from scratch. It was our anniversary. 6 years. She hadn't said a word about it all day. I spent that night on the couch. I didn't even bother trying to sleep in the same bed. At 2:34 a.m., I heard her leave. The front door opened and closed with a soft click. No bag. No overnight stuff. Just her keys and her phone. I told myself she went to clear her head. But deep down I knew. You don't take off your ring to clear your head. You do it to make room for someone else's hands. And that's when I started my countdown. Because if she wanted space, she was about to find out what silence really feels like. The next morning, I didn't ask where she went. I didn't look at her when she walked in wearing the same clothes from the night before, her makeup barely smudged, and her eyes avoiding mine like they owed me money. I just sipped my coffee, black, bitter, cold, and scrolled mindlessly through the same news stories I'd already read twice. She didn't speak. Neither did I. But the silence? It screamed. She showered, changed, and left again without touching the breakfast I made. Eggs, toast, strawberries, all untouched. She used to love when I made strawberries. Said I picked them better than anyone. Now she barely looked at the plate. Later that day, I did something I never thought I would. I went into her side of the closet. Not to snoop. At least that's what I told myself. I just needed to see something. Needed proof that I wasn't insane. Her black heels were gone. The ones she only wore for client dinners, and I hate that I even had to think this, dates. Her perfume was missing too. The expensive one I got her for our anniversary 2 years ago. She said it made her feel elegant. She hadn't worn it in months. I sat on the edge of the bed, my head in my hands, while the world collapsed in slow motion around me. This was really happening. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't overthinking like she said I always did. I was being erased. She came home that night later than the last. No apology. Just walked right past me on the couch. I glanced up and asked, "Is this going to be every night now?" She paused at the stairs and said, "Colby, I told you. I need time." I don't know what hit me harder, her saying that, or the fact that she said it while glancing at her phone, smiling at a message I never got to see. I wish I could say I stood up for myself, that I made a scene, asked questions, demanded the truth. But I didn't. I just sat there like a wounded puppy hoping for scraps of affection. And she gave me nothing. Not even eye contact. That night, while she slept peacefully in our bed, her back turned, her body curled away from mine like I was a stranger, I got up, went downstairs, and opened my laptop. I Googled how to file for divorce. My hands shook the whole time. I didn't want this. I really didn't. But something in me had shifted. Not out of anger. Not even pain. It was exhaustion. I was done fighting for someone who wasn't fighting for me. The next morning, I packed a small bag and left it in the trunk. Just in case. She didn't notice. She barely noticed I existed. At lunch, I called a lawyer. That night, she came home humming. She was in a good mood. Giddy almost. like she'd just gotten off a roller coaster and couldn't wait to tell someone. But not me. She said she was seeing friends, but her hair was done in curls, and she wore lipstick I hadn't seen in years. I asked her, "Did you enjoy your break?" Her smile faded for a second, just a flicker, then came back stronger. "Colby," she said, almost annoyed. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." But what she didn't know, what made my chest tighten and my jaw clench, was that I'd already signed the papers. I hadn't served them yet, but they were ready. She wanted space. She was about to get her wish. Only this time, she wouldn't be the one walking away. The day I left, there was no fight. No suitcase in the hallway. No dramatic shouting match. Just the sound of a soft drawer closing and the quiet click of the front door behind me. I waited until she left for her Saturday morning yoga class, the one she used to drag me to, before she started going alone. She stopped asking me to come a few months ago. Said it was her time now. I let her have it, thinking maybe she'd come back more centered. But all it ever brought back was more distance. So I stood in the middle of the living room, looking around at the apartment we built together. The mismatched throw pillows we picked out at that flea market in Portland. The coffee table with a scratch from when she accidentally dropped a wine glass during a stormy night argument about nothing. Every corner held a memory, and all of them hurt now. I left a note, not because I thought she'd care, but because I needed to say it. It said, "You asked for space. I'm giving it to you. Papers are with the attorney. Don't call me unless it's important." I didn't leave angry. I left tired. That night, I checked into a quiet little Airbnb across town. Nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom above a bakery. Smelled like cinnamon and rising dough in the mornings. For the first time in what felt like forever, I slept through the night. No shifting bed. No cold shoulders. No pretending we were still okay. When I woke up, I expected to see a missed call or maybe even a text from her. Something. But my phone was blank. Not even a question mark. And that's when I knew she'd been waiting for this too. I didn't tell my family. Not yet. I didn't want to deal with the pity or the "I told you so" from my sister, who never really liked Macy. I didn't even tell my best friend, Evan, because the last time I vented about our marriage, he told me to man up and reclaim my household, whatever that meant. Instead, I went for a walk. It was cold, windy. I forgot my scarf. But the chill helped clear my head. That's when I saw her. Not Macy. Him. I was walking past a little outdoor cafe downtown, the kind that puts up heat lamps in the winter and still tries to convince people it's cozy to sit outside. And there he was, tall, smug-looking, wearing a charcoal pea coat and sipping a latte like a villain in a holiday movie. Sitting across from him, laughing into her hand, was my wife. She was wearing the perfume I gave her. The curls were back. Her eyes sparkled the way they hadn't in months. And she was touching his wrist. I froze. My legs wanted to run. My stomach dropped, then twisted so hard I thought I might throw up right there on the sidewalk. But I didn't move. I watched. I needed to see it with my own eyes, not on a screen, not in my head. I needed the confirmation. She wasn't on a break. She was replacing me. They didn't see me. Or maybe they did, and just didn't care. He leaned in. She smiled like a teenager. She wasn't acting like someone conflicted. She wasn't acting at all. I turned around and walked away. Fast. My fingers were numb. My heart. I don't even know. It wasn't broken, it was quiet. Numb. Like a room after the music's been turned off. Just silence. That night, I opened my laptop again. This time, not to search for answers. I already had those. I sent one email, to my lawyer. Serve her. 2 days after I saw her at that cafe, laughing like our marriage hadn't just been erased, the papers were officially delivered. I'll never forget how I felt when I got the notification from my lawyer. Service completed. She signed for it. Just that. No emotion. No context. But I knew the exact moment she opened it, because 6 minutes later, she called me. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. First one, "What is this?" Then, "Are you serious right now?" And then a longer one that started with, "Colby, we said this was a break," and ended with something about how I was overreacting. I sat there, staring at my phone while she spiraled in real time. For someone who was so confident asking for space, she sure panicked fast when I actually stepped out of it. Around midnight, she showed up at the bakery apartment. She banged on the downstairs door like she owned the place. I didn't even have to look out the window. I knew that rhythm. I knew her knock like I knew her breathing. But I didn't go down. I watched her through the small window above the stairs as she stood there, arms folded, pacing in her designer boots, eyes red. After 15 minutes, she gave up and left. The next morning, she texted again. Talk to me. But I didn't want to talk. Not now. I was still trying to process how fast she'd pivoted from needing space to being someone I didn't even recognize. She'd built an entire second life and just expected me to stay on pause until she decided what parts of me were still useful. Later that week, I got a call from her sister, Paige. We were always close, closer than Macy liked, honestly, and I hadn't told her anything because I didn't want to put her in the middle. But she'd found out. Macy had called her sobbing. She said you blindsided her, Paige said over the phone. I laughed, and it wasn't even a happy laugh. More like disbelief leaking out of my mouth. Blindsided her? She's the one who disappeared without leaving. Paige was quiet for a second. Then she said something that hit me harder than anything else had. She told me about Grant. Just like that. No lies. No covering. Paige knew. And apparently, so did a few others. It wasn't some brief emotional fling or midlife crisis confusion. Macy had been seeing him for months. They met at the gym. She told Paige it started with innocent flirting. A few protein shakes. A few workouts together. A late dinner. Then, it wasn't innocent anymore. Paige told me she had warned her. Told her she was making a mistake, risking too much, crossing lines. But Macy said she needed to feel something new again. New. That's what I was to her once. Once. That same night, I started packing up the last of my stuff from the house. I waited until she was at work. I didn't want the drama, the tears, the guilt trip I could already hear in her voice. I didn't want to hear about how she was going to tell me, or didn't mean for it to go this far. I just wanted out. While packing, I found something shoved in the back of the kitchen junk drawer. An envelope. Sealed, never addressed. I opened it. It was a letter, written by her, meant for me. But it wasn't recent. It was dated almost a year ago. In it, she talked about how she felt lost. Disconnected. Like we were just roommates. She said she didn't know how to tell me she wasn't happy. That she was afraid of hurting me. That she loved me but didn't feel in love anymore. And then the last line. If I don't say this soon, I'm scared I'll do something I can't take back. She never gave it to me. Instead, she did the thing she couldn't take back. And now she was crying because I had the nerve to act on it first? No. She wanted a break. Now she could have a permanent one. The morning after I emptied out the last of my stuff from the house, I dropped off my keys with the building manager. I didn't text her. I didn't say goodbye. I wanted my exit to be clean, surgical. I thought that would be the end of it. That she'd get the message. That she'd vanish into her new life with Grant and let me move on quietly. I underestimated her. That evening, I got a knock on the bakery apartment door. This time, I opened it. Macy stood there, mascara smudged, lips pressed together so tightly they were almost white. In her hand, she held the letter I'd found, the one she wrote and never gave me. I didn't ask how she knew I'd found it. Maybe she'd forgotten she left it. Maybe she assumed I'd find it eventually. Either way, she came here thinking she still had pull, like we were stuck in some story where she got to control the last chapter. She stepped inside without waiting for permission. You didn't even give me a chance to explain, she said. I crossed my arms. You didn't leave much to explain. Her eyes narrowed. So you're just done? Just like that? I wanted to laugh. Just like that? She'd been done for months. I was just late to the realization. Look, Colby, she said, voice softer now, like she thought sympathy might work. I messed up. I admit that. But you blindsided me. Divorce? Without even a conversation? Now I did laugh. You took off your ring before you said a word to me. That was the conversation. She stepped closer. You know I didn't mean forever. I panicked. Everything felt wrong, and I didn't know how to fix it. Grant was just. I held up a hand. Stop. Don't finish that sentence. Don't insult me by pretending he was a reaction. You were dressing up for him before you even asked for a break. She flinched. Good. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done. You really filed, she whispered, almost like she still couldn't believe it. I did. Because someone had to end this properly. You just wanted to keep me on a shelf while you figured out your side project. Her face twisted. Don't call him that. Then don't pretend this marriage was something you respected. Silence fell between us like a dropped plate. Shattered. Sharp. Then she said something I didn't expect. I was going to come back. I really was. I just needed time. I stepped back, not because I was scared, because I was disgusted. Time to do what, Macy? To test drive another man, and see if you missed me enough afterward? She started crying, but it felt rehearsed. Too tidy. Like she'd expected me to comfort her. Like she forgot that I'd already done all the hurting. Now it was her turn. I still love you, she said. But I shook my head. You loved knowing I'd wait. That's not the same. She left without another word. And for a moment, I thought that was the final goodbye. But I was wrong. She wasn't done. She was just getting started. 3 days went by. No calls. No texts. No drama. And for a moment, I let myself believe it was over. That she'd finally accepted it, signed the papers, and walked back into her new life with her gym hero while I figured out how to rebuild mine. But peace, I've learned, doesn't last long when someone like Macy is losing control of the narrative. Because on the 4th day, I got an email. Not from her. From Grant's wife. Yeah, he was married. Still is, technically. And just like me, she hadn't been told the truth either. Not until recently. Her message was polite, almost professional. She introduced herself as Natalie and said she'd been meaning to reach out ever since she connected the dots. She didn't explain how she found me, but I didn't care. I read every word. She wrote that she and Grant were in counseling, trying to repair things. That she'd known something was off for a while. But the name Macy didn't come up until she saw a hotel charge on their joint statement. She confronted him. He cracked. Spilled everything. According to Natalie, Grant admitted it had been going on for over 6 months. Said it started as flirty texts after workouts, then escalated. Hotel rooms. Weekends when I thought Macy was at conferences. They even planned a trip together. One she canceled at the last second, telling him she wasn't ready to blow up her life. That same weekend, she told me she needed a solo retreat to work through her anxiety. I guess I wasn't the only one being strung along. Natalie closed the email with this. I thought you should know, in case you were still hoping for an explanation. Or worse, a reconciliation. She was never confused. She was calculating. That last sentence. It lit something inside me. Because I was hoping, deep down, that maybe Macy had been lost, or hurting, or misguided. But no, she was playing both sides. Keeping her options open. Lying through her perfect teeth while I tried to save something she'd already set on fire. Later that night, I printed Natalie's email. I didn't send it to Macy. I just left it in her mailbox. No note. No context. Just the truth. 2 hours later, she called. I didn't answer. Then she sent one message. We need to talk. Now. I didn't reply. By midnight, she was outside again. This time, she wasn't banging. She was sobbing. I watched from the upstairs window, lights off, heart pounding, not out of pain, but out of something colder. Closure. She stayed there for 20 minutes. Then she left. That was the last time I saw her in person. The next morning, she signed the divorce papers. But it wasn't over yet. Because just when I thought I could walk away clean, life handed me something I didn't expect. An unopened envelope, slid under my apartment door, no return address. Inside was a positive pregnancy test, and a handwritten note that simply said, "It's yours." When I read the note, I didn't move for a full 5 minutes. I just sat there, frozen on the edge of the bed, holding the test like it might explode in my hands. My first instinct was denial. This had to be some kind of manipulation. A last-ditch effort to pull me back into the wreckage she created. But then I remembered Macy wasn't the type to fake something she couldn't control. She didn't bluff, she maneuvered. Still, I wasn't about to let panic do the talking. I slid the test and note into a drawer, took a breath, and called my lawyer. He told me not to respond yet. Let her come to you, he said. And if she does, ask for proof. Ask for a timeline. I didn't have to wait long. That night, Macy called again. This time, I answered. I wanted to hear her voice. I wanted to listen, not to what she said, but how she said it. She jumped in immediately, like she'd been rehearsing. I didn't know how to tell you. I wasn't even sure until last week, and then when I found out, I panicked. I know the timing looks bad. I cut her off. When did it happen? She paused. What do you mean? When did it happen, Macy? When do you think this baby was conceived? Another pause. Longer this time. I'm not totally sure, she said. But I think it was in early March. Before you left. That's when I knew. She was lying. Because I hadn't touched her since January. I didn't say anything for a few seconds. Just let the silence build. Then I said, "It's not mine." She immediately went into defense mode. You don't know that. We were still together. Barely. And not physically. You want me to pretend I forgot that? There was a heavy breath on her end, then something that almost sounded like a plea. Colby, I messed up. I know. But this changes things. I laughed. It came out dry, bitter. Yeah, it changes everything. Because now Grant gets to be a dad, too. Does Natalie know she's going to be a stepmom? She lost it then. Full breakdown. Crying. Blaming. Spinning. She swore she didn't know who the father was. Claimed she'd only been with him a few times, and that she was hoping it might be mine, because that would be simpler. Simpler. That's the word she used for dragging me through betrayal, manipulation, and now potentially trying to make me raise another man's child out of guilt. I told her she'd hear from my attorney, and hung up. But I wasn't done. I reached out to Natalie. I didn't want to. I hated the idea of throwing this onto someone else's already crumbling world. But I also knew Macy wasn't capable of telling the truth. So I did it. I forwarded the picture of the test and her note. I didn't add commentary. Just 2 words. Thought you should know. 10 minutes later, she replied. Already suspected. You just confirmed it. Thank you. And that was it. 2 women. 1 lie. 1 child, whose truth would come out, whether they wanted it to or not. But here's the part one didn't expect. The next day, I got a text from Macy's mother. She'd heard everything. And she had something to tell me. Something Macy never intended for me to know. When I saw Macy's mom's name flash across my screen, I hesitated. I hadn't spoken to her in months. Not since the Christmas dinner where Macy spent most of the evening texting a coworker and barely looked up from her phone. Her mom, Janine, always treated me kindly, almost like she saw something in me that Macy had long stopped looking for. But this was unexpected. Her message was short. Can we talk? It's important. And it's about Macy. I think you deserve to know. I called her. She answered immediately. I didn't want to get involved. Colby, she said gently. I tried to stay out of it. But what Macy's doing now, it's not okay. I didn't speak. I let her continue. She told me Macy had been struggling more than she let on. That the space she claimed she needed wasn't a moment of self-discovery. It was a cover-up. According to Janine, Macy had been seeing Grant while pretending everything at home was fine. She lied to her family, just like she lied to me. But the part that hit hardest? Janine told me Macy had confided in her, weeks ago, that the baby probably wasn't mine. She knew, Colby, Janine said. She knew and still sent you that note. I closed my eyes, not out of surprise, but out of relief. Because I wasn't crazy. I wasn't the dramatic husband imagining betrayal where there was none. I had been right to trust my gut. Janine apologized. Profusely. She said she loved me like a son and hated how this turned out. But I told her the truth. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was free. The next few weeks passed like a slow thaw. Quiet, still, but full of tiny signs of life returning. I focused on work. Started running again. Saw my friends, really saw them. Laughed. Let myself enjoy things again without dragging emotional weights behind me. I moved into a new place across town. Nothing fancy, but it had light, space, and no ghosts in the walls. Then something happened I didn't expect. I met someone. Her name's Elise. We met at a bookstore, both reaching for the same copy of a Raymond Carver collection. She laughed when I said she could take it, then handed it to me instead and said, I've read it twice. It's your turn. We talked. No games. No tension. Just honesty. I didn't tell her my whole story on day one. But I told her enough. She listened. And not once did I feel like I had to shrink myself down to keep someone's interest. Weeks turned into months. And today? Today I smiled at a photo of us from last weekend, taken on the pier at sunset. And for the first time in over a year, I felt full. Not distracted. Not surviving. Just alive. Macy still tried to reach out once more, after the paternity test confirmed what we already knew. I didn't respond. Some endings don't need closure. They just need distance. She wanted space. And I gave her the kind she never expected. The kind you never come back from. She walked in like nothing happened. Her coat was still buttoned. Her lipstick still perfect. Hair curled like she'd just stepped off a magazine cover instead of from a late client dinner. But I wasn't on the couch watching TV like usual. I wasn't in the kitchen cleaning up the plate of food I always saved for her, even when she ghosted me for hours. No, I was standing in the middle of the living room, silent, surrounded by boxes she hadn't noticed yet. She paused, blinked once, then gave me that tired smile. Hey, sorry it went late. The client talked forever. I didn't say a word. I just looked at her coat. She never buttoned it all the way up unless it was cold. And it wasn't cold. Not tonight. But someone probably helped her put it on. Probably buttoned it for her. Probably smirked while doing it. She hung it up carefully. Too carefully, like she was stalling. And I just watched her. Every step she took echoed in that half-empty room. I'd already cleared out 2 closets, most of the drawers, and my side of the bed. She hadn't even noticed. Or maybe she had, and just didn't care. Dinner was at the Harbor Lounge, she offered. You know, the seafood place near the pier? I nodded once. The Harbor Lounge. I'd suggested that spot on our last anniversary. She said it was too corporate. But now she's suddenly into oysters and waterfront views? She started talking again, nervously, her voice jumping from topic to topic. The appetizer, her boss's hilarious story, something about a dessert tray. All white noise to me. Because I already knew the truth. Not just because of her perfume, which wasn't hers. Or the credit card charge I saw from her synced account earlier. Or the subtle lipstick mark on her wine glass in the sink that had 2 prints on it. But because I was done pretending. For the last 2 weeks, I'd been packing in secret. Every night she was out late, I was folding clothes into bags she wouldn't miss, wrapping up my keepsakes in old sweaters, slowly deleting myself from the apartment we built together. I cleared out the guest room first, then the storage closet, then my home office, the one she never walked into anymore, because it gave her anxiety. And now everything was nearly ready. Just one last piece remained. Watching her lie to my face like I hadn't already erased myself from this life. She smiled again. You okay? You look weird. I smiled back. Everything's spotless, I said. She blinked. What? I walked past her. Calm. Quiet. Done. You'll figure it out, I muttered. Eventually, I left the front door open behind me. And just like that, I was gone. I didn't slam the door. I didn't scream. I didn't even say goodbye. I just walked down the hallway, past the flickering elevator light, and out into the cold December night like I wasn't leaving behind 8 years, a mortgage, and a woman who once promised me forever. I heard her voice behind me as I walked, confused at first, then sharper, louder. Daryl, she called. Daryl, what's going on? She still had no clue. None. And honestly, that was the part that hit me hardest. Because I had spent months begging for scraps of attention. Sitting across from her at dinner while she scrolled through texts I wasn't allowed to ask about. Waiting in bed alone, listening to her come home late with half-baked excuses and a perfume that didn't belong to us. I stayed through all of it, through the gaslighting, the guilt trips, the cold silence. But the moment I stepped out the door, now she noticed something was wrong? I didn't answer. I just kept walking. The van was already loaded. I'd parked it on the other side of the block, so she wouldn't see it from the window. Half our apartment was in there. She hadn't noticed any of it. That's how little she saw me. She didn't even realize she'd been living with a ghost these past few weeks. By the time she ran outside, barefoot and in a panic, I was gone. Not far, just far enough to watch from the corner. She stood on the sidewalk, looking both ways, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't decide whether to yell or cry. She looked smaller than usual. Not powerful, not polished, not like the version of herself she saved for her boss and his sleek little dinner parties. Just lost. I waited until she went back inside. I could see the flicker of lights as she walked room to room. Maybe that's when it started to sink in. The missing clothes. The empty drawers. The blank spaces on the wall where our photos used to be. She didn't even have my number anymore. I'd changed it 2 days ago and left my old phone in the top drawer of my desk with a single message open on the screen. You lied better than you loved. She didn't call. She FaceTimed. But the call never came to me. It went to that old phone, vibrating silently on the desk as she stood over it, blinking at the screen. I imagined the look on her face when she saw that message. The pause. The cold realization that something was very, very wrong, and that it was too late to fix it with another pretty excuse. She tried to text me next. My new number was private. I watched the old phone light up with messages that only I would never read. I imagined her pacing, calling her sister, maybe even calling Trent, trying to figure out what to do now that her world wasn't revolving quietly around her anymore. No husband. No backup plan. No audience for her little performances. By 1 a.m. She sent her final message. Where are you? Please come back. I don't understand. That line broke me in a whole new way. Because she did understand. Deep down, she always did. She just never thought I'd actually leave. Never thought I had it in me. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just vanished. And now, she was stuck in the silence she gave me for months. She once said she loved how quiet I was. Now she'd get to live in that silence. Alone. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was heartbroken or angry. I'd already felt all of that, months ago. No. That night, I was wide awake because I wanted her to sit in it. The silence. The confusion. The guilt she'd buried so deep under spreadsheets and fake dinners, and the sound of her own voice saying, "You're overthinking again, Daryl." I imagined her sitting on the edge of our bed, the one I'd stripped bare except for the comforter, looking around at the ghost of a life she never thought would leave her. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel powerless. I felt calm. But Lena wasn't the kind of woman who stayed still when she lost control. By morning, I started getting the messages. Not on my phone. Again, that was dead to her. But through mutual friends. One of her coworkers messaged me on LinkedIn of all places. "Hey man, is everything okay? Lena's freaking out. She said you vanished." I didn't respond. Instead, I changed my profile photo to a plain black square and removed all my public info. Let her chase shadows. What really got to her, though, wasn't my disappearance. It was the envelope I left in the hallway cabinet. I taped it to the inside of the door, so she'd only find it if she was desperate, rummaging through things, trying to understand how her husband became vapor. Inside was a copy of a dinner receipt. From the Harbor Lounge. The one she claimed to have gone to with her boss. Dated 3 weeks ago. But there were 2 entrees, 2 drinks, and a bottle of wine. A very specific bottle of wine. She'd told me they were splitting the bill with the client. But this receipt? It had her signature at the bottom. Just hers. And the bottle of wine listed? It was the same bottle I bought her for our anniversary 2 years ago. Back then, she said she didn't even like that wine. Too sweet, she told me. But I saw it on the receipt again, in black and white, next to the dessert platter for 2. She drank our memory with someone else. I knew this part would crush her more than the silence. Because Lena lived for control. For image. For structure. She thought she was 10 steps ahead of me. Thought I was too weak to walk. But I didn't just walk. I cleaned up after myself, too. She also didn't know about the locked room. The spare bedroom at the end of the hall, the one she used to store her files and work stuff, was locked when she got home. I changed the lock that afternoon and slid the key under the baseboard in the elevator shaft. Not to be cruel, just to make a point. That room held the rest of my things. And it held one other item, an old iPad synced to her cloud. Yeah, she forgot about that part. I didn't even have to hack anything. Just opened the Photos app a week ago, and there it was. Screenshots. Snaps she thought disappeared. A video, muted, grainy, but clear enough. Her in a dress I'd never seen. Him holding her waist like I used to. Her laughing the way she hadn't in years. So no, I wasn't just walking away from her. I was walking away from the gaslighting, the late nights, the scent of someone else's cologne in our sheets, the versions of me I kept killing off just to make her happy. And now, all she had left was the image of herself in a mirror that finally cracked. And I wasn't there to tape it back together this time. It took her 46 hours to finally show up at my brother's house. She didn't even know where I was staying. I'd told no one except Owen. And even he didn't know the full story. All he had was a suitcase waiting for me when I arrived, an air mattress in the guest room, and a quiet nod like, "You don't have to explain. Just rest." But Lena must have sniffed him out eventually. Maybe checked my calendar, or scrolled through old texts, or just guessed. She was always good at finding people, when it served her. But when she knocked on the door, I didn't open it. I watched from upstairs, out of sight, holding my breath as she stood on the porch in a long beige coat and sunglasses like she was walking into a courtroom. She rang the bell again, and Owen opened the door just a crack, enough to let her know she wasn't welcome. Her voice was calm. Too calm. "I just need to talk to him. Please. Just for a minute." But Owen had heard me sob through the wall 2 nights earlier. Had seen me shake while reading old messages she sent to Trent that I wasn't supposed to find. He simply said, "He's not ready," and shut the door. She didn't knock again. Instead, she sat down on the front step like she was waiting for an Uber. Except it wasn't an Uber she wanted. It was access. Control. A chance to rewrite the narrative before it slipped too far from her hands. Because that's what she always feared most. Not losing me, but losing the version of herself I saw. If I stopped believing the lie, then who was she? But this time, her control was gone. And she knew it. I got a message later that evening. Not a call. Not a voicemail. A photo. Of our bedroom. Empty. The walls stripped. The drawers pulled out. My absence had finally become real to her. Not a threat. Not a test. Not some emotional outburst she could wait out. This time, she had to sit in the aftermath. And the panic was finally starting to seep in. Then came her second mistake. She sent me another picture. This time of him. Trent. Or rather, her and Trent, standing at some corporate event, shoulder to shoulder, his hand a little too low on her back. This is all it was, she wrote underneath. It wasn't what you think. She really thought that would fix it. That a caption could clean up a betrayal. That if she controlled the narrative just right, I'd crawl back and beg to be gaslit again. But she didn't know that I had already spoken to someone. 3 days before I left, I sent a message to a name I found buried in one of her team group chats. Celia R. Turned out, Celia was Trent's wife. And she didn't know anything about these dinners. Not one. She thought her husband was traveling for audits, conferences, team retreats. My message was simple. I think our spouses have been spending a lot of nights together. You deserve to know that. No anger. No demands. Just truth. And Celia responded. Within minutes. I knew something was off, she said. I just didn't want it to be real. That night, she and I stayed on the phone for almost 2 hours. Strangers. Betrayed by the same people. Both trying to make sense of how long this had been going on and how deep the rot went. And as we talked, a plan quietly started to form. Not revenge. Something smarter. Lena still had no idea I'd contacted Celia. She still thought she was playing chess. Still thought I was her pawn, sulking somewhere, waiting for her to say the right combination of words to unlock my forgiveness. But I wasn't that guy anymore. I was done being quiet. Done being the backup plan while she played house with someone else. And now, the lies were unraveling on both ends. But I wasn't done yet. It wasn't the message that shook me. It was the timing. She sent it at 4:03 a.m., exactly 31 minutes after Celia told me she'd finally confronted Trent. Just a single sentence. I don't know how this all got so twisted. No, I'm sorry. No explanation. No accountability. Just a vague, shapeless attempt at damage control. Like if she could soften the edges, I'd stop bleeding. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't want to, but because there was nothing left to say. Everything I needed to hear had already come out of Celia's mouth the night before. She told me that Trent hadn't just lied to her. He'd used my name. Said I was insecure. That I approved of the dinners. That Lena had checked in with her husband, and I was cool with it. I sat on the edge of Owen's guest bed with my phone pressed to my ear, hands shaking, heart sinking, as she read off texts that made me sound like the world's most clueless fool. I wasn't just cheated on. I was erased. Turned into a non-issue. A punchline. A faceless, spineless background character in whatever fantasy they were playing out under candlelight and wine glasses. But what Celia said next, that's when I realized I hadn't seen the worst of it yet. Apparently, there was an incident. Some HR complaint Lena never mentioned. Celia didn't have all the details, but there had been whispers that Trent was being transferred quietly, and that certain emails between him and Lena had been flagged. Celia only found out because someone in compliance owed her a favor. And just like that, the pieces started sliding into place. The sudden work trips. The frantic way Lena had wiped her laptop last month, claiming she was clearing space. The night she came home crying and said it was because the company was downsizing. No, it wasn't downsizing. It was damage control. Lena hadn't just betrayed me. She'd gambled everything. Our marriage, her career, her reputation, for a man who wouldn't even pick up the phone when she started to fall. And now that it was collapsing, she came crawling back. Except she wasn't crawling to me. She was crawling to everyone else. Owen showed me screenshots from mutual friends, vague status updates, cryptic captions, taking time to heal selfies. Lena wasn't apologizing to me. She was rebuilding her image, playing the misunderstood victim. She even reactivated her old blog, the one she abandoned after we got married. Suddenly, it was full of quotes about growth through pain and the loneliness of being judged. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. She was still trying to control the narrative, even now, even after everything. But she didn't know that Celia had taken screenshots of the emails. She didn't know I'd forwarded them to a friend of mine who worked in the same industry. She didn't know the story was no longer hers to spin. She only knew one thing for sure. I was still silent. And this time, my silence wasn't weakness. It was the sound of a fuse burning down to something she'd never be able to fix. It all came undone faster than I expected. The tipping point wasn't something loud or public. It was an email. Just one. Celia sent it to the compliance director at their firm. Subject line: formal concern regarding workplace conduct. It was a short message, polite, almost clinical, but it included screenshots, timestamped texts, dinner confirmations, photos that weren't supposed to exist. One of them showed Lena and Trent sitting at a bar, too close, too casual, clearly outside of office hours. Celia didn't ask for revenge. She asked for clarity, for an internal audit. That's all it took. The fallout started as a trickle. First, Lena was put on leave. Then her company email was locked. Her LinkedIn suddenly said, open to opportunities. She didn't post about it. No vague quotes this time. Just silence. But I saw the panic in the shadows. A mutual friend messaged Owen asking if Lena was okay. Said she'd shown up to a friend's birthday party off, drinking too fast, leaving too early. Another friend said she was looking for a new apartment, which didn't make sense because she still had the condo. Unless, of course, she couldn't afford it anymore. I didn't smile. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt done. Numb maybe. Tired. Like I'd finally finished dragging myself through a swamp I never agreed to walk into. The saddest part? I would have forgiven her once. Not because I'm spineless, but because I loved her that much. Because I wanted to believe the woman I married was still in there somewhere. But that woman didn't exist anymore. She was replaced by someone who lied to my face, rewrote the truth, weaponized guilt, and smiled while I withered. And now, that same smile was gone. She texted me again, 3 days after the HR fallout. No apology, no details, just this. They twisted everything. I need to explain. Please. I didn't reply. Instead, I sent her a single email. One she couldn't twist. One she couldn't cry her way out of or rewrite on social media. It contained two things: a formal notice that I'd retained legal counsel regarding separation of shared property, and a Dropbox link labeled Evidence, Read Only. Inside were the receipts, the texts, the screenshots, the timeline. But I saved one file for last. A recording, not of her, of me, sitting in our empty living room the night I left, talking to no one, just hitting record on my phone and spilling the truth as I saw it. Every lonely night, every gaslight, every missed call, every moment I stayed when I shouldn't have. It was raw, shaky, full of emotion I'd buried for too long. And I ended it with, you don't get to rewrite this. I was here. I existed. I mattered. She viewed the Dropbox file 6 minutes after I sent it. No reply. No call. Just silence. This time, her silence told me everything. She wasn't in control anymore. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel invisible. She didn't knock this time. She just stood there. I saw her through the kitchen window, same beige coat, but this time it was wrinkled and soaked from the rain. She didn't hold a phone or a bag or even an umbrella. Just her. Alone. Soaked and shaking. It took her over a month to show up again, and now, after everything, she looked like she was finally ready to admit she'd lost. Owen wasn't home. He'd gone out for groceries, which left only me inside. And I had a choice. Open the door, or let the rain finish what the silence started. But something in me wanted to see her face. Not for closure. I wasn't waiting on some emotional apology. I just wanted to see what was left of the woman who said she'd never be the kind of person who cheated, who swore she'd never become her mother, who used to sob when her co-workers got divorced, saying, I'd never do that to someone I loved. I opened the door. She didn't speak right away, just looked at me, blinking, dripping, breathing like she'd run a mile uphill. Her eyeliner had smeared, her lipstick was gone, and for once, there was no performance in her eyes. No spin, no speech ready, just the raw panic of someone who realized too late that the mask doesn't work anymore. Daryl, she said, barely above a whisper. I lost everything. I stepped back, letting her in only far enough to keep the rain off the floor. I didn't invite her to sit. I didn't offer a towel. I just watched her stand there, small and shivering, and I waited. They let me go, she said. Not officially, but I'm blacklisted. Nobody's calling back. Trent transferred to Denver. He won't answer me. He told HR it was all me. That I initiated it. I raised my eyebrows, slowly, like I was just now hearing it for the first time. But I already knew. Celia had told me days ago. She kept going, voice cracking, hands trembling. My lease is up next month. I can't afford to renew. I tried moving back into the condo, but your lawyer blocked it. I didn't think you'd actually. She stopped, swallowing hard. I didn't think you'd really leave. That part stung. Because it was true. She never thought I would leave. She thought I'd always fold. Always forgive. Always wait. She thought I was the guy who would clean up the mess quietly and sleep beside her like nothing happened. She didn't understand that the man who left that night was not the same one she married. You didn't lose me, I finally said. You spent me. Like loose change. Her face fell. And for the first time, I saw it. Not guilt, not regret, but shame. That horrible, suffocating weight that doesn't go away with an apology. She tried to say something else, but I stopped her. I didn't leave because you cheated, I said. I left because you lied about it while staring me in the face. I left because you made me feel insane for noticing. Because you let me bleed out emotionally while telling everyone how brave you were. Her lip quivered. She looked away. I didn't mean. But you did. I cut in. You meant every lie, every omission. Every night you came home smelling like someone else and told me I was being paranoid. You meant to protect yourself. You just didn't expect to lose. She nodded slowly. Said nothing. For once, she had no script. I watched her walk back out into the rain. She didn't ask to come back. She didn't beg. She didn't yell. She just walked down the steps, into the streetlight glow, swallowed by the storm she created. And this time, I didn't feel empty. I felt free. It's strange how quiet can feel different when it's finally yours. The first few mornings after she left my doorstep, I kept expecting something. A knock, a call, a new trick up her sleeve. But it never came. No more messages. No more damage control. Just a long, stretching silence that didn't feel like punishment anymore. It felt earned. I stayed at Owen's for another week, but it was never meant to be permanent. I'd already signed the lease on a small 2-bedroom apartment across town. Nothing fancy, but it had hardwood floors and a tiny balcony that caught the morning sun just right. And it was mine. No ghosts. No lies in the walls. Just a space I didn't have to share with someone who treated love like a business negotiation. I unpacked slowly. I was in no rush. Every box I opened was a reminder of what I kept and what I finally let go of. The wedding album? Donated. Her old anniversary letters? Shredded. But the things that mattered, the photo of my dad fishing with me as a kid, the record player I almost sold to afford her birthday gift that one year, the quilt my mom made for our first Christmas, those stayed. And they felt heavier now. More real. I went back to work. I started running again. I started eating like I cared about myself again. People say healing is a straight line, but it's not. It's jagged. It's messy. Some days I missed her like a phantom limb. But most days, I missed myself. The version of me that used to laugh without checking if it was okay first. And then, out of nowhere, it happened. I met someone. No, not like that. Not a rebound. Not a distraction. Just someone. Her name's Morgan. She works at the bookstore near my apartment. We talked about music once. Then again about coffee. Then about nothing at all. It wasn't fireworks. It was quiet. And I needed quiet. Not the kind I lived in with Lena, but the kind that feels like breathing room instead of suffocation. We haven't rushed it. She doesn't ask about my past unless I bring it up. She listens. Not with an agenda, with attention. And the first time I laughed around her, like really laughed, I realized how long it had been since I felt light. A few weeks ago, I walked past the building where Lena and I used to live. It was late. Warm out. I stood across the street and looked up at the balcony where we used to drink wine and pretend we were happy. The lights were off. The curtains had changed. A new couple must have moved in. Good. I don't know where she is now. I don't care. Maybe she rebuilt. Maybe she didn't. That part of the story doesn't belong to me anymore. And for the first time, I'm okay with that. Because I didn't just walk away from her. I walked back to myself. And this time, I'm not leaving. There were 2 toothbrushes in the bathroom when I left for the gym. When I came back, there were 3. That's it. That's how it started. Not a lipstick smear. Not perfume on a collar. Just a 3rd toothbrush. Green. New. Still damp. Like someone had just used it and tucked it behind the others hoping I wouldn't notice. But I notice everything. I'm not bragging. It's a curse. My brain doesn't let things slide. I catalog smells, sounds, receipts, socks out of place. Call it trauma. Call it anxiety. Call it years of being the boring one in the relationship. Whatever. It's who I am. And that toothbrush, it shattered my denial like a sledgehammer. I stood in that bathroom for probably 10 full minutes, just staring at it. Like it might confess. Like it might whisper, "Hey, man, sorry, I thought you knew." My wife, Emery, was in the kitchen, frying eggs like nothing was wrong, laughing at a podcast, humming off-key, wearing my hoodie. My hoodie. You want to scream in moments like that. You want to slam the cabinet, storm in, confront, accuse, demand. But I didn't. I did what I always do. I swallowed it. I walked out. I told her the gym was packed, that I'd try again later. She nodded and said, "Weird." That was it. That was all I got. But I was already gone. That night, I pretended to sleep. Listened to her breathing next to me. Watched her shift and sigh and roll over. I watched the shadows under the door. Because someone had been in our house. I was sure of it. I didn't know who or when or how, but I knew it wasn't just me and her anymore. The next morning, she left for work early. Earlier than usual. Like pre-sunrise early. I waited exactly 13 minutes after she pulled out of the driveway. Then I grabbed a pair of gloves, my phone, and started searching the house like a crime scene investigator. I wish I was exaggerating. I pulled the sheets off the guest bed. Nothing. Opened the garage. Normal. Checked behind the curtains in the basement. Empty. Then I checked the smart lock history on the app she didn't know I had access to. And that's when I saw it. A code was used at 2:48 a.m. 2 nights ago. A code I didn't recognize. My heart stopped. Not metaphorically. It stopped. I had to sit down. I called the company, posed as a confused homeowner. They emailed me the profile list. Hers. Mine. A third. Under the name Trainer. Trainer. The pieces started falling together faster than I could catch them. Her new health goals. The gym membership she claimed was cheaper when paid in cash. The soreness. The protein shakes. The half-hour showers after workouts. I was so stupid. I didn't confront her right away. I needed proof. Real proof. Not a toothbrush. Not a name. I wanted something undeniable. So I did something I promised myself I'd never do. I called my brother Joel. Joel's a private investigator. He's also kind of a jerk. We don't talk much. He thinks I'm soft, and I think he's a soulless troll. But he owes me. So I cashed it in. I gave him her name, her license plate, her schedule. I told him I wanted photos. Videos. Something I could drop on the table like a grenade and say, "Explain this." 3 days later, I had it. My wife, Emery, in a parking lot at 9:52 p.m. In my hoodie, kissing a man with a gym duffel and a smug, punched-in-the-face-worthy smirk. Kissing him like she used to kiss me when she thought no one was looking. And then climbing into the back seat of his Jeep. I stared at that video on loop for 2 hours. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. I just watched. Over and over. Like if I watched it enough times it might reverse itself. Like maybe I was dreaming. I wasn't. That night, I didn't say a word. I packed a single bag. Grabbed my laptop. My passport. Left my ring on the pillow next to hers, and walked out the back door. I turned off location sharing. Deleted my social media. Booked a one-way bus ticket under a fake name. And I disappeared. At least, I thought I did. Because exactly 42 days later, while I was living in a borrowed camper in New Mexico, hiding from everything, I got a text from an unknown number. "You can't just vanish. I know where you are." I sat there staring at the message, hands trembling so hard I nearly dropped the phone. The desert wind outside rattled the camper's thin windows, but I didn't even flinch. My world was already shaking. "You can't just vanish. I know where you are." No name. No context. But I knew. I knew it was her. Clarice. No, Emery. I still keep slipping and calling her that in my head. Habit, I guess. Or maybe it's denial. Because the woman who wrote that text wasn't the one I married. That woman was gone, replaced by someone who could lie to my face for months, sneak another man into our house, and still call me the coward for leaving. I didn't reply. I turned off the phone immediately, pulled the SIM, snapped it in half, and dropped it in a cup of old coffee. But it was too late. She'd found me. How? I checked everything when I left. I used cash. Fake names. No social media. No contact with anyone we both knew. I stayed off the grid better than I ever thought possible. So how the hell did she do it? The next morning, I found out. I walked out to the little gas station up the road, just a quarter-mile from the dusty edge of the RV park, and the clerk, who'd seen me a dozen times by now, waved me down. "You're the guy with the camper, right?" he said. "Yeah." I answered slowly, heart already sinking. "Some woman came by asking about you. Said she was your sister. Left this." He handed me a handwritten note. Her handwriting. Flowing and sharp, just like her voice when she was angry. "We need to talk. I'm staying nearby. Don't run again. You owe me that much." I didn't know her anything, except maybe the same kind of heartbreak she gave me. But something else scared me more than her tracking skills. It meant she had planned this. Knew I'd run. Knew I'd hide. Which meant she knew me far better than I ever gave her credit for. Or worse, she'd been reading me like a book this entire time. I walked back to the camper, locking the door even though I knew it wouldn't stop her. I sat down on the edge of the fold-out bed and stared at the desert again. I thought about running again, disappearing deeper, changing my name a second time, heading up to Montana or even into Canada. But then something gnawed at me. Why did she want to talk? What could she possibly have to say after all this? And more importantly, why now? Something didn't feel right. And I was about to learn the betrayal wasn't over. It had only just begun. I didn't go to her. Not at first. I stayed locked in the camper all day, sweating in the dry heat, trying to convince myself she was bluffing. That she'd leave. That she didn't actually want to find me, just to win. Because that's what this all felt like now. A game to her. Like she'd cheated, lied, destroyed our marriage, and still had the nerve to chase me down like I was the one who ran out with someone else's husband. But curiosity's a disease. And mine was terminal. Around 6 p.m., I saw headlights flash past the edge of the campground. Not a car. A sleek gray SUV, newer model. Quiet. Windows tinted. It rolled to a stop near the gas station and just idled. I ducked, watched from between the blinds. The sun was low enough that shadows stretched long across the gravel. A door opened. And then, there she was. Emery. Wearing sunglasses and a tight black hoodie like she was in some kind of crime drama. She wasn't looking around frantically or pacing or acting heartbroken. No, she was just standing there. Calm. Like she knew I was watching. Like she could smell me. I felt cold. Like my blood had dropped 10 degrees. She didn't look broken. She looked prepared. That was the part that scared me most. I didn't see desperation in her face. I saw strategy. She waited 15 minutes. Then she pulled out her phone, tapped something in, and got back in the car. Drove off slow. No screeching tires. No dramatic exit. Just that silent SUV disappearing into the dusk. I thought that was the end of it. But later that night, I found a piece of duct tape stuck to the back window of the camper. Nothing big. Just a little patch. Black. Easy to miss. I peeled it off. Underneath it, a GPS tracker. My throat locked. I couldn't breathe. I knew it had to be hers. She had either slipped it on earlier that week or stuck it on herself that evening. Either way, it meant she wasn't just looking for me. She was monitoring me. And that's when it hit me. The toothbrush? The trainer in the smart lock? That had been intentional. All of it. Not clumsy. Not careless. She wanted me to find out. She knew what I'd do. She knew I'd run. And now she was reeling me back in. But why? Why go through all this trouble? Why follow me across state lines? Why the tracker? The fake note? The silent staring act in the parking lot? Unless this was about more than me walking away. Unless this was never about love or even guilt. Unless Emery had been hiding something so much worse. And she needed me close, because I was the last loose thread. I didn't sleep that night. Not even a minute. I just sat in that camper with the GPS tracker on the table in front of me, turning it over and over in my hand, wondering how long it had been there and what else she'd planted. Was there a microphone? A camera? Had she bugged my laptop? My mind wouldn't stop spinning. I even turned off the fridge because I thought the humming was suspicious. By sunrise, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to run again. Not yet. I needed answers first. Not just for closure. I needed to know how deep this went. Because something told me this wasn't just an affair anymore. Emery wasn't chasing me because she missed me. This was bigger. It felt planned, methodical, almost like I was part of a checklist she had to complete. So I went to the nearest library, used one of their public computers, nothing traceable, and logged into a bank account I hadn't touched in over a year. It was an old joint savings account we'd opened during our second year of marriage, meant for vacations or maybe a house one day. We'd stopped using it after we started splitting bills differently. I figured it was empty by now. It wasn't. There was over $30,000 in it. I blinked, leaned in closer. That money hadn't been there last time I checked, which was maybe 14 months ago, but the deposits weren't mine. They weren't hers either. I didn't recognize the source, just strange alphanumeric codes every 2 weeks, like payroll but scrambled, and every withdrawal transferred to a new external account, also under my name. But here's the thing, I never opened that account. I called the bank's fraud line, pretending to be confused, and when I asked about the linked account, the rep told me, "Yes, sir, that one was set up in your name about 9 months ago. You should have the welcome packet already." I never got any welcome packet. My voice cracked when I thanked her and hung up. I suddenly felt sick, like my stomach had flipped over and was eating itself. Emery had opened an account in my name. She was transferring money to it. And now there was a trail leading directly back to me. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, my phone vibrated. Not my personal phone. I had already destroyed that. This was a prepaid burner I'd picked up 2 towns ago just for emergencies. The number wasn't saved, but the message was short. "If you touch the money, you'll regret it." I dropped the phone. It felt like it was burning my hand. That's when I realized this wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was a setup. She wasn't just tracking me. She was framing me for something. Something big. And if I didn't figure out what it was soon, I wasn't going to be the victim in this story anymore. I was going to be the one in handcuffs. I should have gone to the police. I know that. Normal people would have. But the moment you're tangled in something that smells like fraud, or worse, you stop thinking like a normal person. All I could think was, she's setting me up for something, and I'm the only one who knows it's happening. Who's going to believe the husband who ran away from his wife and went completely off the grid? Who's going to listen to the guy with a secret bank account and a fake name? I was on my own, and that made me desperate. So I did something I swore I'd never do again. I called my brother Joel. Not for a favor this time. I told him everything. About the toothbrush, the GPS tracker, the fake bank account, the strange deposits, the threatening message. He didn't laugh like I expected. He didn't even interrupt. He just said one thing. "She's using you. And if you want answers, stop looking at her phone records and start looking at her movements." He told me to check public storage facilities. He said people like her, controlling, manipulative, organized, rarely hide things at home. They use off-site lockers. Harder to trace. No digital footprint if they pay cash. I didn't want to believe Emery had gone that far, but she had a gym bag and a trainer's SUV. She had a whole secret life. Why wouldn't she have a secret storage unit? So I searched. Quietly. Carefully. Used a VPN. Searched facilities back near the city we used to live in, the one I ran from. The third one I checked had something weird. A unit rented under the name Alyssa Granger. But the birthday on the file? It was Emery's. I called pretending to be her assistant. Said Ms. Granger needed to confirm the locker size before renewing. They gave me the unit number. I drove 12 hours overnight and showed up the next morning with bolt cutters. I still hate myself for what I did next, but I had to know. Inside the storage locker wasn't furniture. It wasn't old clothes. It wasn't anything normal. It was evidence. 3 phones. Stacks of paper records. USB drives. A half-burned notebook with names and numbers. There were photos of me. Yes, me. On my laptop, in our bedroom, outside the house. All dated and time-stamped. Like she'd been building a file on me. Like I was her target. Or worse, her fall guy. I found a folder labeled March Drop, Safe Route, Evidence A. Inside were receipts from the account in my name. Withdrawal logs. Train tickets I never bought. A fake ID with my photo and a different name. Lyle Beckett. It didn't even make sense. What was she planning? Why go this far? Then I found a legal letter, sealed but unmailed, addressed to a federal office. It was a whistleblower disclosure, accusing me of orchestrating a wire fraud ring, funneling money through fake consulting contracts. I dropped the folder. My whole body went numb. She was framing me. With timelines. With documents. With fake IDs. Emery was building a narrative. And if I hadn't run when I did, I think she planned to flip the switch, report everything, and let the storm fall right on top of me. But why? Why destroy me like this? That's when I saw the final envelope. It was addressed to a name I never heard before, but inside was a photo of her and him, the so-called trainer. Only, he was wearing a badge. It didn't make sense at first. The badge in the photo was partially blocked, but it was there, silver, oval-shaped, tucked inside a leather wallet. The man Emery was with, the one I thought was just some smug gym guy she'd been sneaking around with, wasn't who I thought at all. He had a government badge. Homeland Security. At least, that's what it looked like. And she wasn't just standing next to him. She was holding his hand. Smiling. Posed. Comfortable. Like they'd done this before. I stared at that photo, so long my eyes hurt. What the hell was I looking at? Was he undercover? Was she? Why was my name in a fake whistleblower packet being tied to fraudulent accounts? Why was she tracking me across state lines if she had the law on her side? That's when it hit me. This wasn't about a love affair at all. It was about a job. The entire marriage, the 5 years we spent together. Had I been part of something I wasn't even aware of? A cover? A shield? Was she even legally married to me under her real identity? I raced back to the motel I was staying at. Not the camper. No way was I going back there now that I knew they were probably tracking my every move. I grabbed my burner phone, powered it up for the first time in days, and dialed the only number I trusted anymore, Joel. I told him what I found. The fake storage locker. The fake ID with my face. The folder with whistleblower accusations. And the photo. He didn't laugh. He didn't question it. He said something I'll never forget. Do you remember Emery's maiden name? Yeah, I said Lewis. Why? That's not what's on your marriage certificate, Joel replied. My blood went cold. We pulled the records. Online. Public. It took less than 5 minutes. And just like he said, her listed maiden name wasn't Lewis. It was Grantham. I had never seen that name before in my life. She used a fake last name to marry me. Probably a fake license. A fake everything. And I had signed every document, every joint tax filing, every legal record with a woman who might not have even existed under that name. I thought I was running from a broken marriage. Turns out, I'd been married to a ghost. And the ghost was hunting me. By midnight, Joel had me booked on a different identity. One of his old clients owed him a favor, fake name, clean background, even a fresh driver's license. But before I left town, I needed one more thing. Closure. Or at least confirmation. I drove to the motel she'd booked in town. Same SUV was parked outside. Same polished calm. I parked across the street. Watched. Waited. Then I saw her walk out. Not dressed down. Not frantic. Wearing a blazer. Talking into an earpiece. Holding a folder in one hand and what looked like a badge in the other. She walked right up to the SUV, opened the passenger door, and handed the folder to the man inside. Same man from the photo. He nodded. Smiled at her, then pulled out his phone and showed her something. I couldn't see what it was, but whatever it was made her face go cold, and she started looking around like she felt me watching. That's when I realized something even more terrifying than all the rest. She wasn't trying to find me because she was afraid of what I might do. She was afraid of what I already knew. I stayed in my car long after she disappeared inside. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the steering wheel. My mind was unraveling, stretching in too many directions at once. There she was, my wife, or the woman who'd played my wife, dressed like a federal agent, passing sealed folders to a man with a badge, talking into an earpiece like she belonged to something far above my pay grade. I was never part of her real life. I was a layer, a mask, a cover. And now, that mask had slipped. I wasn't just disposable, I was a liability. I should have driven away. I should have vanished again, gone north, changed my name a second time, and buried the whole thing. But something inside me refused to go. Not without the truth. Not without finally knowing who the hell I'd married, and why she spent 5 years pretending to be someone she wasn't. I waited until the lights went out in her room. Then I broke every rule I ever gave myself and crossed the street. I didn't knock. I didn't make noise. I slipped a folded card between the frame and lock, an old trick Joel taught me when we were kids and stupid. The door gave with barely any resistance. Cheap motel locks never hold. Inside, everything was quiet. Her suitcase was open on the bed. The folder she gave the man earlier was gone. But another one was sitting on the desk, sealed. I opened it. Inside were photos. Not of me this time, but of another man. Middle-aged. Plain. Accountant type. Smiling in front of his office building, holding coffee, standing with a kid at a soccer game. On the back of one photo was a name, Clint Morrow. I had no idea who he was until I saw the next photo. It was Clint with Emery, holding hands, smiling like a real couple. Not like us. This wasn't a lie. This wasn't some fake husband for a cover story. This was someone she loved. I felt dizzy. She had a second life. A real life. With a man who looked like he had no idea what she was capable of. I flipped through page after page, trying to piece together the timeline. Dates. Surveillance logs. Expense reports tied to Operation Sundial. Whatever the hell that meant. She'd been tracking this Clint guy for years. But if he was a target, why was she in photos with him like his girlfriend? Or his wife? Unless she had married him too. My stomach dropped. She wasn't just a liar. She wasn't just cheating. She was running multiple lives. Multiple marriages. Multiple identities. And now I was tangled in something far beyond betrayal. This wasn't about love. Or infidelity. Or heartbreak. It was about being a thread in a web she thought was perfectly woven. And I had just ripped straight through the center of it. That's when I heard it. The sound of a key sliding into the lock behind me. She was back. And this time, she wasn't alone. I didn't move. I couldn't. My body locked up the second I heard the key turning. There was no time to hide. No time to escape. I was standing in the middle of her motel room, holding proof of her second life. Her second husband. Her second web of lies. The door opened slow. She stepped in first. Not surprised. Not scared. Almost impressed. Behind her, the same man from the SUV. The badge guy. Only this time, he wasn't holding a file. He was holding a gun. I told you not to come back, she said calmly, like we were having coffee, not a confrontation. You just couldn't leave it alone. I didn't answer. I looked at her, and for the first time in 5 years, I saw her exactly as she was. Cold. Precise. Empty. Not the woman I married. Not the one I cried over. Not the one who laughed at my terrible cooking or stole the blankets or kissed me like I was the center of her world. That woman never existed. She walked over, reached for the folder in my hand. You're done, Owen, she said. You weren't supposed to figure any of this out. But then the man behind her spoke. Actually, he said, that's where you messed up. She turned sharply. Her eyes narrowed. What are you doing? He lowered the gun slightly, not pointing at me anymore, pointing at her. You've been sloppy. You kept him in it too long. You forged too many documents. You thought they wouldn't check? I warned you. For the first time, she looked nervous. What is this? She snapped. You're not serious. He pulled a pair of handcuffs from his belt. You're under investigation, Emery. Internal affairs. This whole op is compromised. My mouth fell open. This was the twist I didn't see coming. He wasn't her partner. He was her handler. And now, he was her arresting officer. She screamed, loud, furious, betrayed. I backed into the corner while he forced her to the floor, cuffing her like it was routine. She fought like hell, kicked over the chair, cursed in languages I didn't even know she spoke. But he didn't flinch. He just read her rights calmly while she thrashed and shouted and stared at me like I was the one who ruined her life. I wanted to say something, anything. But there was nothing left to say. She didn't love me. She never loved me. But somehow I still won. Because I walked away. Because I didn't let her destroy me. The officer gave me a look as he hauled her to her feet. You're lucky, he said. Guys like you usually disappear before we ever figure out what they were caught in. And just like that, they were gone. I sat on the floor of that motel room for 20 minutes, shaking, breathing, trying to understand what had just happened. Then I did what I should have done months ago. I left. Really left. I changed my name. Not to run, but to restart. I got a place by the coast. Started working with my hands. Built furniture. It's slow, honest, peaceful. Some days are hard. Some nights, I still hear her voice in my dreams. But it's quiet now. I'm free now. And the best part? I met someone. Someone real. She doesn't wear disguises. She doesn't play games. She laughs for me, not someone else. And when I told her everything, every paranoid, shameful detail, she didn't run. She just said, let's build something better. And I believed her. Because this time, I finally know what love isn't.